Hey, hello there. Good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL strategy show. I think possibly the most important show of the week. I mean, we've got updated sims. Some of the stuff will be refined over the course of the next couple of days. Friday practice reports, as you guys know, I don't have to tell you. Friday practice reports, clearly very important. But for now, pretty decent understanding of where we're going on a slate like this. We ran them. We're good to go. Greg Ehrenberg's here with me this morning, and I hope you guys had a good night or having a good morning, and we're about to get into it. What's up, brother?
Yeah, we had a Thursday night football game that was pretty much as advertised last night.
Great game.
Really high scoring. The only disappointment really was, and almost everybody had big fantasy games. It was a super weird game for George Pickens. Obviously, there was the concussion for CeeDee Lamb, but for the most part, whoever you rostered probably had a good game last night. It was a high-scoring one.
Yeah, like Ryan Flournoy.
Yeah, the Flournoy game was insane. He finished with, like 10 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown or something like that. Partially, that was because of the CeeDee Lamb injury. And George Pickens, just an odd George Pickens game. Like, there was plays where he was open and there was like decently thrown passes. And I was like, yeah, just not going to try this time. Just not going to.
And then like the Flournoy one, he was wide open. Like just total busted coverage. And Dak found him, but couldn't find Pickens. Anyway, yeah. And then Gibbs just kept scoring. That guy is ridiculous. Hey, thanks, Common Pennies. Appreciate you, man. Ryan Schindler. I think it's Ryan, right? Ryan? Mm-hmm. R. Schindler? Yeah, I believe it's Ryan. Tail the Gibbs ladder, straight cash. Thanks. Yeah, I'll tell you, Greg and I were talking about that after the show. It's like, because Greg went and repurposed it and turned it into a short before the Amon-Ra St. Brown news, but it didn't really seem to matter because they still used him to alleviate some of that pressure. And he got there with 9 minutes left in the third quarter. So a sweat, as you know, Greg, a sweat-free bet in the form of an over, because usually in the form of an under, you need like an injury or something. But a sweat-free bet in the form of a 6-to-1 ladder, no less. Mm-hmm. It feels good, you know, and that was I was happy that we had that up on Tails and that people could ride that out with me, because when those do hit, because oftentimes they're not gonna hit, right? We got a 14% implied odds over on Bet365. When they do hit, it's a nice feeling especially going into the weekend, right? Like you have a nice Thursday slate for DFS. It's a nice feeling going into Sunday to go like, you know, even if I don't have the greatest weekend betting or playing DFS, Thursday was really good to me. And it takes some of that pressure off.
Got a decent game out of Amon-Ra St. Brown, too. He had 92 receiving yards. It was, unfortunately, he ended up being contrarian for DFS. He had a good game. Unfortunately, relative to other players in the game, it wasn't all that great a game. If you would have told me going into it, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have 92 yards, I would say, oh, I like how that sounds. But, yeah, it didn't really end up mattering as much when you get Jahmyr Gibbs putting up another 3 touchdowns. You had also the weird Flournoy game. You had Dak threw for over 300 yards. Goff threw for over 300 yards. So it's kind of all those top-end guys ended up going off, and you just didn't get – you really needed a touchdown out of Amon-Ra St. Brown, or at least 8 more yards to get to the 100-yard mark.
Exactly. All things considered, though, like this – here's the thing. If you went overweight on St. Brown, regardless of whether you needed him or not, you unquestionably made the right decision, because he looked fine, right? You know what I mean? Forget about the results for a second. He looked fine. And as you mentioned, 1 8-yard touchdown. And now how many receptions did he finish with?
Yeah, 6 for 92.
You were right going with 6. I said 7. One more. Oh no, you had 5, right? Or did you go over 5.5?
No, I had 5, and you said should have gone 6. Should have gone 6, and that so you're on the right end.
But no, like to your point, if he had 1 8-yard touchdown reception, then you're talking 7 for 100 and a touchdown, and you're right. So one little play, literally a little play, can make all of the difference. But 6 for 92, the guy was perfectly fine. Also, Jared Goff just missed him on what would have been some easy throws. So we split the difference on our prediction on captain ownership. You said 4, I said 8. He ended up being 6. So right there in the middle. And there was one more thing. Oh, the one more thing I wanted to mention before we get into this. This is, I promise you guys, this is an important factor, not just for those of you who are premium subs, but also for those of you who like to utilize our data through watching these live shows for free. There was someone complaining in Discord yesterday, and it was only one person, but I do want to point this out because it's not the first and it won't be the last time it happens, about how he was going to cancel a sub because the St. Brown news wasn't updated until 45 minutes before lock. That's not because there's no one at the controls. It's because our data team doesn't want to put garbage out there if there's not some merit to what we're doing, if it's not backed by data, right? So allowing for odds to update, props and all of that stuff to update and get a better understanding. When you're playing these showdown slates and the inactives come out an hour and a half before, you want to be around your computer, maybe not 20, 30, 15, but like 45 minutes before lock. That is when you should be getting your lineups in, because aside from that, Greg, like even on a Sunday, right? Inactives come out at 11:30. We do an update at noon Eastern time. I never have any lineups in until after 12 o'clock. Like that's when I really drill down and I start getting all of my lineups in. And I'm usually done by like 12:30 or so.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other, especially because people complain about it for NBA sometimes too. It's like, I mean, if you're building your NBA lineups 2 hours before lock and disregarding anything afterwards, you might as well not be playing NBA. Like you just have no chance to win that kind of scenario. Obviously NBA and NFL are a little bit different, but yeah, like what if somebody gets unexpectedly ruled out? You want to be available to make any lineup changes.
Right, exactly. And if you see sites out there that are just throwing up crazy projections right after the news, a lot of it's probably pretty arbitrary. So, like there's not much to go off of there. Anyway, let's get into it. Glad to have you guys here. If you don't mind, take a second to atone for your sins this fine Friday morning. We're heading into the weekend. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. I always like to see, like when I talk about comments, what are your favorite builds going into a week like this? Because I always have some ideas in mind. So does Greg. We do the Wednesday single lineup show where we build a lot of lineups out. And we've had a few weeks this year where we look back and go, man, we should have stuck with those.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there was a week last year where we did this show on Friday, and the third highest simmed overall lineup ended up being the identical lineup that not that took down a milli. I'm sorry. It was the top simmed lineup in our Sims run on Friday, and it would have finished third in the large field milli. So I always pay attention to this. Are these the exact lineups I'm going to be playing on Sunday? Most likely not, because some news will happen, but it still puts us in the right path. And it's good to have this in your back pocket, whether you are a premium sub or you're not, going into Sunday's week 14 slate. So let's dive into it, man. And I'll ask you, where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think we should start at the quarterback position and just looking at some of the overall stack build options that we are getting to. It's a couple of guys are showing up in a bunch of lineups, and then you got a bunch of guys who are in like 3 to 8% of lineups also. But I saw people in the chat bring up the spot that Josh Allen is in. Great matchup against the Bengals, 7,700. And also, I think that Joe Burrow being back and healthy also benefits the opposing offense like Josh Allen, because I mean, the Bengals defense isn't stopping anybody, but now you got a chance for a game to be more competitive and high scoring back and forth all the way through. So we got a ton of exposure here to Josh Allen, and I'm really interested to see what some of these builds look like, because I don't know who our data likes stacking him with.
Yeah, look, you're right. I will say this. I'm surprised we're getting this much Josh Allen. I've had to manually boost him a lot in the past couple of weeks. The 1 week it worked out well against Tampa. Last week, not so much. But those were spots where I had to do it. Now we're pulling a ton of exposure to Josh. How much over the field are we on him?
So a decent amount. He is projected for 18.
That's still a lot for a quarterback, by the way.
Yeah.
We don't,
18%
that's still a lot.
ownership. And we've got him in 25%. So a quarter of our lineups have Josh Allen, and we're more overweight. We're more overweight to Baker Mayfield, actually. But yeah, we're pretty heavily overweight to Josh Allen relative to it being, quarterback where you can only play one guy.
For sure. Steven Leibowitz, I won't say the Bengals D is good, but they've been better than they were. And it's not like the Bills have great weapons. Look, this is why, like, on a showdown slate, it doesn't actually matter, because I was never not going to play a ton of Detroit players, obviously. But I did make an argument that, hey, in some lineups, you could play the Cowboys D. they have looked better lately. That D-line has looked better lately. This is why I try and be careful with this. Like, they've played better if you're talking about a main site, because you're right. The Bengals, to some extent, have looked a little better. They've been dialing up some pretty smart blitzes and getting the quarterbacks. But over the course of the season, they've still been very bad. And it is still Josh Allen going up against them, right? So I think you have to look at it from two different angles. Have the Bengals been a little better? Yeah, Greg. But also, the Bengals act, and I mean this with all sincerity, this is not an exaggeration. The Bengals couldn't actually be worse than they were over the first 10, 11 weeks of the season. They couldn't have been any worse than they actually were. So really the only place to go over the duration of a full season is up, but I don't know how far up they can go. And they're not going to have Trey Hendrickson again this week.
The other thing too is this is a systemically bad defense. Like, how many years in a row have the Bengals had a terrible defense? Even if you want to say, oh, the last few games have been marginally better, you're comparing them to being historically bad to start the year, but they've also been bad for years. This is, to me, I would need to see the Bengals defense good for an entire season before I'm like, okay, this is actually a competent defense.
Yeah, right. It's a problem. I like both sides of this game, as a matter of fact. And it doesn't appear that the Sims are really liking Joe Burrow in a spot like this. And understandably, Buffalo is a pass funnel defense, which muddies the water because Samaje Perine got a lot of work last week. We're not getting a ton of Joe Burrow, but I don't hate him at all in a game like this. We have seen some pretty intense shootouts between these two teams. I actually want to pull it up and see this. Actually, while I do, Greg, can you answer this super chat for Dan? I think it'll help him, but also a lot of other people as well.
Yeah. By the way, also, we are 2 weeks removed from the Bengals giving up 34 points to the Steelers in the game that Mason Rudolph was the quarterback for half the game. I'm not sold that this defense is all of a sudden, decent or something.
Like I said, they couldn't get worse, but that doesn't mean they're good.
Let's see. What do we got from Dan? Fellas, can you show me how to make 150 lineups with 10% Mechie exposure using ROI Boost, then a new 150 with Tyrod Hall and Mechie stacks? All right. So you are asking for two different lineup sets? All right. So if you want Mechie, who right now we have in 6% of lineups, he's actually going to be pretty easy to get into exactly 10%. Because if we just
cap him at 10%.
And if you just make, I don't know what the exact number, but I mean, if you went just I don't know, 40% would be enough, but it's probably about close. Then you go to exposure caps, just go to Mechie, set it to 10% max exposure. Set exposures and adjust favorites. Let's see. Did that get us to 10%? Yeah, exactly 10% of Mechie. Just give him, doesn't have to be a crazy ROI boost because he was already showing up in lineups. But yeah, that got him into 10%. And then you also want 10% of Tyrod, Breece Hall, and Mechie. Yeah, you could just do the exact same thing. Go to Tyrod Taylor, give him a little bit of an ROI boost. Same process as before. And just do that with Tyrod, with Breece Hall, and Mechie. Favor your top 150 lineups, you're going to have 10% of all of them.
Man, how different this league looks now. I was trying to see how many times Burrow has faced Josh Allen. It's 3 times, but one of those was the DeMar Hamlin game, so that doesn't count. But in the other 2 games, one was a postseason game. They won 27-10. That was Joe Burrow, won 27-10. And they went 24-18. He threw for 348 and 2 in that game. But how strange. Back in 2021, remember when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl? I forgot who they had to face in the postseason. Outside of the divisional spot or the AFC Championship against the Chiefs, they faced the Raiders and the Titans. It's just crazy over the course of only a few years how much the landscape can change, right? I mean, some teams just stay good, but my God, some of these teams are terrible now. Would you want to get to Burrow, or would you be more inclined to go like chase run backs and stuff? Because I ask, I ask because Josh Allen is going to be the most popular quarterback on this slate by what seems like a wide margin. If we're doing that because this game atmosphere specifically looks really good, Joe Burrow shook the rust off last week, didn't look all that bad. This game has a 53.5 point total. Maybe a very simple spot here as like a leverage point to still get exposure to the game is just go Joe Burrow on the other side.
I personally really like Joe Burrow. If you remember on Wednesday when you and I were hand building lineups using the single lineup sim, the first lineup I wanted to build was a Joe Burrow stack. I think it's a great buy low spot for him. He's only $6,500. You've also got clear stacking partner with him in Jamar Chase. So Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. There's enough value on the slate now where it's not going to be all that hard to make some of the more expensive stacks work. Let's see.
I think Higgins will be back too. He had a full practice yesterday.
Oh, by the way, I was looking down for Chase. Chase already, by the way, the wide receiver we're getting the most exposure to. He's showing up in 52% of lineups, which is the second most of any player that we have in the Sims at all for the entire slate. You know, there is definitely a little bit of uncertainty in terms of like, what is Joe Burrow's rushing upside? Seems unlikely they're going to want him to run a ton coming back from the turf toe injury that caused him to miss basically the entire season. But I mean, Joe Burrow has just about as much fantasy upside as any quarterback in the league other than, say, like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, maybe Patrick Mahomes because of how much Mahomes is running this year. But I think that Joe Burrow is going overlooked by the field and by our data a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll see how it plays out. It's only a 5.5 point spread. Muhammad that's a good point, Muhammad. And again, it's not like James Cook isn't going to be owned. My guess is we're still getting a lot of James Cook and that he's popular. But Muhammad said James Cook could just take over. You could go with Joe Burrow doubles and a James Cook run back. I mean, if there's one thing we know about the Buffalo Bills is that on most weeks, and I'm not saying every week, but on most weeks, you could fade all Bills pass catchers and be okay, right? But James Cook is the type of guy who can absolutely break a slate. So, yeah, I actually don't hate the idea of that at all. I wonder if we have any of those as well. And if you want to pull up lineups real quick, if you don't mind, Greg, and just go to like Burrow and see if we have Burrow and Cook in the same lineup. I bet some of those actually look really good.
We have a decent amount of James Cook, so there'll be at least one of them here. Just because we only have a couple % of Joe Burrow, there just aren't that many Joe Burrow lineups that are going to be favorited.
Well, they don't actually. My thing is they don't actually have to be favored. There's going to be times where if it's a positive sim to ROI, I might still grab that lineup anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some here.
Let's see.
Cook. Yeah, we do
only
have
one, but there's still
one.
Yeah.
And then a bunch here with slightly lower sim ROIs, but nothing crazy. But Burrow, Cook, Aaron Jones, Jamar Chase, Christian Watson, Alec Pierce, Darnell Washington, a favorite around these parts, Josh Jacobs, and the Jets defense.
Yeah, there you go. I don't hate it. Darnell Washington, eventually they got to get that guy more involved, man. They just have to.
I mean, the other thing too is it seems like nobody in the league is capable of tackling him because he's so giant. That's an underutilized archetype of of NFL player. How about just big motherfuckers? You give them the football and they just run downhill and nobody can do anything about it.
But he's not just big; he's athletic, right? That's the difference. Like a lot of these big guys, like okay, well they can't get open, but he actually can. Like you can get him the ball and then he can rumble. And what's interesting about a guy like Darnell Washington is that after the catch, he's actually pretty talented. The only way to really take him down is with multiple tacklers, or you just have to trip him up. Like you have to go low on Darnell Washington. Because if you try to tackle him high, you're going to get your bell rung every single time. Are we getting a decent amount of him?
Let's see. Or you just set up like an Acme trap. Like you paint a fake tunnel in the middle of the field and hope he just runs into a wall and falls down. But otherwise, it's been tough. No, he's actually only in, funny enough, he was in that lineup because we only have 1.3% of him. So he's only in 2 out of 150 lineups.
I will say, I do not like how much Bowers we're getting to. I really am not a fan of this spot at all.
He is in 21% of lineups at 6K. Before we got, I wanted to make sure that we got to the super chat before we moved off the Bills-Bengals game, just because the super chat was related to it. But Brandon said, would it be viable to give an ROI boost to every key player in the Bengals-Bills game if I'm leaning that way? So the short answer is yes. You could certainly do that if you want just an aggressive amount of exposure to that game. But also, the Sims are already giving you a lot of that game. Not as much Joe Burrow, but we've got Josh Allen in 25% of lineups. James Cook is in 28% of lineups. You got Jamar Chase in 52% of lineups. You got Khalil Shakur. He's in 8% of lineups right now. So the question I would ask you, I'm sure Dawson Knox is probably in some lineups. Yeah, we got Dawson Knox in 30% of lineups as a top value tight end. So the question I'm going to ask you here, Brandon, is how much more do you want? Like,
right.
You want to have 40% of Dawson Knox, 30% of Josh Allen, 40% of James Cook, like 65% of Jamar Chase. You could certainly do it, but our data already likes that game a pretty good amount.
And did you mention that you can just do ROI boost to individual stacks?
Yeah, you could do that as well. You can do an ROI boost to an individual stack if that's something that you want to do.
That's the way I would do it.
Yeah,
if you wanted to, but you don't really need to.
Yeah. So if you want to, you could do the stack boost, and you could just go once again. Like, we already have so much of the Bills. Could you boost them? Absolutely. But to the point on Cincinnati, like, yeah, you could also just do like a 10% ROI boost to Cincinnati, and then every single Cincinnati stack is going to be getting a 10% boost here. So that's another way that you could get a little bit more of it. Let's see, what does that give us of Joe Burrow now? Might have had to go a little bit higher than 10%, but maybe that gives us a little bit more. Let's say Burrow, yeah, it got us a little bit more. It went from 2% to 4%. So if we really wanted to get a lot more, could do a more aggressive boost. But you can, Brandon. It just kind of depends how much of it do you want, because it's not like this is a team that we're not getting to in the data.
Right. Troy says, lock in Kincaid if he plays Cincinnati horrible against. Yeah, they are. They are. I've been betting this a lot lately. Hunter Henry the other week, Isaiah Likely, and all of that. But I don't know if he's going to play. We need to see if he gets a full practice. By the way, if you look on the chat here on YouTube, Greg, and you see that, I thought he had a picture of me sitting at my desk in front of my lights for a second until I had to go in. It doesn't look like it there. But if you just look on the small little bubble, it looks like the two TVs with the lights I have behind me. I was like, that's a little creepy, but fret not.
It's like all the people who play DFS with Alex's picture as their avatar.
Yeah, exactly. Fret not, though. That is Troy Jeske in the picture. But yeah, I wouldn't boost that Buffalo Cincinnati game. I think that's enough. I would boost Burrow a little bit. And then if you boost Burrow, you're naturally going to get more of everybody else. But the tools already love Jamar Chase. That's the thing. Now, I don't know if we have Higgins in or out right now. That'll be a big difference. But I expect Higgins to play, given that he is logging a full practice yesterday, midweek. So it's not even, like we've seen this happen where a guy with a concussion will log full practices and still not get cleared. But I think it's reasonable to assume that he's going to be in. Troy said, "Hi, Laffy, big fan," but no. Yeah, no, Troy. Listen, I'm not accusing you of anything. It's just if you look at the small bubble, I think, that's odd. But then I enlarged it, and of course not. You would never do such a thing.
It's because the colors are the same. So, like you said, when you actually blow it up, it doesn't. And this could also only be our view, how we see it in StreamYard. So we might be looking.
No, it's YouTube too. I checked in YouTube.
Okay. But yeah, it's really just the colors in the back of Troy. It looks just like Laffy's setup is.
And I constantly wear white shirts, so it's like, Anyway, just let's go through our QB exposure one more time here.
All right, so it starts with a ton of Josh Allen here. Then you got Baker Mayfield in 18% on. By the way, T. Higgins is in our projection, so we're getting that much of Jamar Chase, even with Higgins projected to be in. Baker Mayfield is in 18% of lineups. Tyler Shuck is in 11% of lineups. Then you got Mariota in 9% of lineups. And there's a pretty big drop off in just a bunch of QBs in like 2 to 7% of lineups. The one that stands out the most to me here is Shuck at 11% of him. Who'd you say?
I thought you were going to say the fact that we're getting 6% Geno against the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't feel great about that. But I mean, so I was going to say the Tyler Shuck one, 11% of him at $4,600. At first glance, it's like, I don't feel great about that. But then I think a little bit more about Tyler Shuck, guy who's been rushing like 5, 6, 7 times per game. He's gradually been making some improvements as a quarterback relative to what he looked like the first couple of times that he stepped on the field. He's only 4,600. He's got a really good matchup against a weak Buccaneers pass defense that, as you've said many times as well, Lofty, really a pass funnel defense. So not that he's my favorite quarterback on the slate, but I think my favorite punt QB on the slate is Tyler Shuck.
I don't hate it. They're 8.5-point dogs. We have to make sure that Olave's in. I think he will be. He followed a similar pattern on a practice pattern last week. But honestly, like if Olave is out, I don't think he will be. But if he was out, I would have a lot less interest in Tyler Shuck because you need a guy like Chris Olave. Now, sure, you could be like, oh, well, Devon Vele and everything. Yeah, the life gets a lot tougher for Devon Vele if Chris Olave's out. And that's just how this isn't like Higgins being out and Jamar Chase getting more work. You know, it's a guy who on any other team probably isn't seeing the field very often. So, yeah, I don't hate him. You know, you have Jawan Johnson, you have Vele. Obviously, you have Chris Olave, and I expect him to play. That's all solid. If there's any other guys that we're not really getting to that I think are viable, and I know the tools don't like him this week, there is one more that I have, Greg. And he's not even on this page. I don't know. I assume we're not getting any of him. I actually think Daniel Jones looks better than he's being projected. And one of the main reasons that I say that is sometimes, and I know he's dealing with this leg injury, but he's been playing through that. And, you know, even last game, while he wasn't great, you know, he still was up against Houston, whose defense is insane. He threw for 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And you could say, well, he's not running as much right now. Yeah, but he has a lot of games where he did not run this season. Like he had 2 rushing yards, -1, 2, 7, 3, 4. He's not running as much because they have Jonathan Taylor. So maybe the leg plays into this. It's possible. But I just look at it and I go, all right, he's faced Houston, whose defense right now is a straight juggernaut. He faced the Chiefs in Kansas City in a game that they needed to win. He faced Atlanta, but they put up 35, and he had a reasonable game. It's just Jonathan Taylor did a lot in that one. He had Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. He had a good game. Like he hasn't his stretch of games recently, at the very least. What if it's just more? What if his lack of big games over the past couple of weeks has simply been more indicative of really, really, really tough matchups, like 2 of the worst passing matchups in the league, and not actually his leg. So that I want to get a little bit of him against Jacksonville because I'm not a buyer of the Jacksonville defense as far as their pass coverage goes.
I'm a little bit more concerned about the leg than you are. I don't. So it's twofold. I don't think he's going to run very much the rest of the season. And I think his touchdown equity is fairly low now too. Because one thing I definitely don't think they're going to do is have him running QB sneaks on like 4th and goal or 3rd and goal or something like that from the 1-yard line. Because that to me with the leg injury is really high risk. And I think they're just going to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor in those situations. So I could be wrong, but I think the leg is going to really inhibit them from having Daniel Jones run or score touchdowns.
It might. I don't know. I mean, just like the toe for Joe Burrow could inhibit him from running too, though, right?
Man, it's a little different, though, because Joe Burrow is capable of throwing for 500 or 400 yards.
I think, I think Jones can have a big game here. I do. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, of course, but I really don't mind him at all. He has his passing prop is 230. It's not like that's not a terrible number. Mahomes is 234. Mm-hmm. Granted, that's a Sunday night game. But just looking at the other quarterbacks, it's not that far below a lot of these other guys. I think probably the price point would be the biggest concern, but not so much anything else. Burrow's at 249 on FanDuel right now. So, yeah. Let's see where they are in passing touchdowns.
We did get another super chat from our guy, Dan, here. And I asked a follow-up question in the YouTube chat to you, Dan, because he said, for the main slate, what percentage do you guys personally use for stack exposures, QB +1, QB +2, QB +3, and opposing player runbacks? So I believe I could be wrong, but I think he's misunderstanding the contest generator, what its purpose is and how it works. So, Dan, if you just mean for my actual exposures, every slate is different, right? Like sometimes there's a QB, sometimes there's like a double stack that makes a ton of sense at quarterback. Sometimes there's there's not a one size fits all. If what I think you mean is the contest generator, and what you want to know about the contest generator is you're not setting your exposures there. The entire purpose of the contest generator is to match what the field is doing, and then you're simulating out the slate with the idea being that all the lineups built are mimicking the lineups that the field is actually expecting to play for that slate. And then you're able to sort by which of those lineups are the best, which ones end up performing the highest. So as far as the QB +1, QB +2, QB +3, and opposing player run back in the contest generator, you don't want to change that because that is set to match what the field is going to do. The only way that you would want to change that is if you we're looking at our data and you were just like, I don't think this is how the slate is going to play out. I think that the field is going to be using different percentages of stacks for whatever reason. But yeah, don't think setting that is going to just mean that's what your exposure is. That's not what the purpose is of the contest generator. But I may have misunderstood your question, Dan, if I was on the wrong side of reading what it is that you meant. You don't have to leave another super chat. Just throw a message into YouTube chat or DM me in Discord. Everybody who's a Stokastic sub, you get access to our Discord that comes along with it, and you can ask questions in there too.
Yeah, and as Mr. D Go Blue, our boy Go Blue says, watch the tutorials too. Like we can send them. That'll help you a lot. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention here, and then we can talk running backs. This is not, I'm not trying to make this a Daniel Jones show, but it's an interesting data point that I didn't actually know was this pronounced up until now. The Jags have allowed the fewest rushing yards and the fewest rushing attempts this season, fewer than the Texans. That's actually pretty crazy to look at, given that when you flip over to passing, Greg, they've allowed the second most pass attempts. It's not even that their defense has been terrible as far as efficiency allowed goes, but they've been an insane pass funnel in that teams are throwing on them at a ridiculous clip, and they're basically just not running on them at all. That is really interesting to see something like that. What a huge difference in that split between rush attempts and pass attempts between Houston defense.
So you said the Jacksonville defense.
Jacksonville, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, Jacksonville.
Okay. Part of that's they've won a bunch of games by a lot of points, especially lately. They beat the Chargers 35-6. They beat the Titans 25-3. They have a handful of lopsided games. I do wonder how much that plays into it.
It always does, for sure. But it doesn't take away from the fact that they're still at the very top and the very bottom. So I agree it skews it. But I think you still have to account for the fact that we're more than 3/4 of the way into the season, and they're still with those heavily skewed numbers. But I don't disagree that there's a little bit getting skewed there for sure. Anyway,
it's funny, even one of their even some of their recent games, so like the loss against Houston, that game they were up like 29-10 or something.
Yeah, they were up 3 scores. Quarter. Yeah, 3 scores for sure. What do you make of Aaron Jones here?
I like the spot for him.
If he plays.
I'm pretty sure he's playing. He practiced yesterday. He talked about the game plan yesterday. I don't know if you saw, he threw some shade at JJ McCarthy, basically called him a moron in like not those direct terms, but he talked about how they had to dumb down the playbook for this weekend's game because not everybody was understanding the complexity of the playbook.
Wow.
And then he was like, it's not actually that complex. He was like, but to some people it is, and they're not able to figure it out. So we're making it a little bit simpler this week. But kind of the way he talked about it in the game plan, it made me feel pretty confident that he's going to be playing this weekend.
Yeah, that
But
makes
also, I
sense.
just thought it was funny how he was like, yeah, he didn't say who, he just was talking in generalities, but they're not making the playbook simpler because Jordan Addison, well, actually, Jordan Addison seems like a little bit of an idiot too, but they're not making the playbook simpler because of guys who were already on the team last year.
Yeah, if he's going to be out there, then I think he's a good play. Now, do I want 73% Aaron Jones? No. I can tell you right now, I just don't. I mean, the guy is already dealing with a shoulder injury that literally knocked him out of last game, which they may have just taken him out. They probably just took him out because it was Max Brosmer. Like that's also entirely possible. They're like, all right, we're not going to have you hurt any further. This is not fair to you, you know. But I would assume that he's going to be okay. I'm with you. 5,300 is a good price point. You have seen kind of a shift in workload between Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason recently. You know, leading up to in 3 games, you saw Jones in week 11, 10, 11, and 12 really, really outsnap and out touch Jordan Mason. So, yeah, I could see that being the case. Mooby, why do the Sims hate Harvey? You know, it's funny because Ben said to me on Tuesday, he's like, there's one guy that's just going to be super chalk. And I couldn't guess him because I didn't think Harvey was going to be super chalk. We've got him at 10% exposure, 13% ownership. So I wouldn't call that chalk, but he's definitely owned. I'll be honest with you, Mooby. I don't like RJ Harvey as much as Ben, possibly as much as Greg. I don't know. I think he's fine this week, but there's still an element of like, yeah, he scores, but RJ Harvey has been wildly touchdown dependent if you think about it. Like, if you look at his games, he had 2 touchdowns last week with 21 DraftKings points. In week 8, understandably, J.K. Dobbins was still out there, but he had 3 touchdowns and 24 fantasy points. So that's 6 non-touchdown points there. If he's not getting in the end zone, RJ Harvey's workload isn't really enough. And that was an overtime game last week. It's not enough for me to just jam him. I'll have some, but I don't think he stands out as this stellar play because they're not giving him a straight bell cow workload. And I don't see why they would change that anytime soon. Also, if you want to talk about an actual pass funnel defense, the Las Vegas Raiders are another pretty decent example of that. We can talk about how embarrassingly bad they are, how laughably awful they are, but the Raiders' run defense has not actually been the problem.
The other thing, too, is to hit on the actual question he was asking there. I'm kind of confused. What is hate? He's projected for 13% ownership, and he's in 10% of lineups.
Well, I kind of mentioned that though, Greg. What I mean, and I should have like contextualized it better, but the reason I mentioned Ben on Tuesday is because it sounds like Mooby and Ben both are of the same thought that he's just going to be mega chalk. So why don't we like him more? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to be mega chalk. I guess he might end up being a little bit more popular. And then if the prop lines come up or we just internally on our data team end up feeling differently, the projection could go up. But he's in 10% of lineups. Like, I guess I don't see why, like, what's the definition of hate here? Like, to me, hate would be like Josh Jacobs is in 0% of lineups at 31% ownership. Not a guy who he was pulling some ownership that were about even with the field on.
Right. For sure. Wow. Brian Branch tore his Achilles for Detroit. That team cannot get right for injuries last year too. That sucks. But no, yeah, you're right. Devon Achane, this is actually a spot that you want to talk about a Sims hating a guy. I'm surprised that the Sims are getting way less Devon Achane this week against the Jets. Like, cold weather game. This guy is flat out fantastic. They didn't need to use him in the passing game last week, which I think is actually a testament to, I think it's actually an endorsement of Achane because he still had a 20+ fantasy point game without a single reception. And when you look at like the workload here, again, he's playing so many snaps. And while Ollie Gordon may get worked in modestly, He, 3 carries last time out. 3 carries last game. Devon Achane in the same game. And again, I don't care about the pass catching in that one. Achane had 22 carries. So what is that? 22 of 25 running back carries. I assume Wright got none or wasn't even active. No, he had 3 actually. He did have 3, but still, it's skewed so heavily there that I like Achane this week. And to get your thoughts on one more guy, I actually bet the over on his rushing yards earlier in the week, posted that one to Tails, just like the Gibbs 70+ ladder yesterday. Greg, you know what I want to do? I want us to go in on a collab lotto ticket for week 14 on Sunday. That would be fun, and post it exclusively to Tails.
We could do that for sure. Let's mark it down. People in the audience, listen, we'll have touchdown bets, something else.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But anyway, Bucky Irving, Todd Bowles going into last week. I know you know this, but for those of you who, don't just kind of jump in late in the week and don't pay attention like we do, because we have to, Todd Bowles said their plan was to work him in slowly. Not only did they not work him in slowly, he had 17 carries in that game, whereas Rachaad White had I think 2 and Sean Tucker had 2. That's a massive discrepancy in workload for a guy that literally missed the last 2 months of the season. He was out for 8 weeks, Greg. And then they bring him back and he immediately has 17 carries. To me, that's somebody that they just view and they hold in much higher esteem than anybody else, despite the Tucker game against Buffalo, despite Rachaad White's previous accolades. They just appear to like Bucky Irving a whole lot more. And they're an 8.5-point favorite this week.
And that's even though he's had a dog shit season. He's been terrible when he's been out on the field this year, Bucky Irving.
I think that's somewhat unfair, and I'll tell you why. Because I thought the same thing, and then I dug into it a little bit more. If you look at the offensive line for this team in the games that he had played, Luke Gedeke was missing, or Tristan Wirfs was missing, or at least 2 of the 5 offensive linemen were missing, and the good ones. So if you get, and Tristan Wirfs is questionable with an oblique, but if you were to get this offensive line back and healthy, to me, I think that actually makes a very big difference for Bucky Irving. Not to mention, one game was the Houston Texans. He had 17 for 71. I'd actually give him a little bit of credit there. The other one was the Philadelphia Eagles, who went up with a huge early lead. Bucky Irving had 5 for 102 receiving yards in that game. So again, they still want to use him similar to Achane, no matter what's going on, no matter what the game script is. So yeah, I'm with you. He was not looking great, but the volume was there. And some of those matchups were kind of tough too.
Yeah. Some of them though, I mean, also the game against the Texans, Rachaad White also had 10 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown in that game.
He got hot.
Yeah. It's still hard to look at a running back who's averaging 3.4 yards per carry for the season and be like, he's having some kind of great year when healthy or something like that. The receiving has been really efficient. He's been targeted 21 times and he's caught all 21 of those. His season high for rushing is 71 yards that game against the Houston Texans, but the workload should be totally fine because like you said, they do seem to really like him despite some of the inefficient running so far this year. They were supposedly limiting him last week. He had 19 touches. Well, week 1, he had 18 touches. So I don't think the limit is a real limit in any kind of way that matters.
Right. Then who are your favorite running backs where you have Cook, you have Jacobs in that cold weather game as a touchdown home favorite against the Bears? I mentioned Devon Achane. Judkins, can you guess what Judkins' rushing attempts prop is this week?
Oh, probably crazy high, I don't know, 19.5.
So that's what I was doing a show with Andy Francis, and I was like, all right, I'll go to 20.5, but I simply cannot see them putting it any higher than 20.5. That just seems crazy. It's 21.5 at -110. That's insane.
That seems a little high to me. But yeah, I mean, either way, I said 19.5, so
right.
We're still expecting a lot, but 21.5 does seem like a very high number.
But with that in mind, I mean, they're favored at home against the Titans. He might just get a boatload of work. So We'll see. I like the running backs a lot this week. There's probably 6 or 7 that I really like.
Yeah, for me, Aaron, like a lot of the guys who are showing up at the top of the Sims, I do agree with for various reasons. Like James Cook, I just like the game environment. Bucky Irving is a good matchup, and the coach speak indicates that they're going to continue to give him more work. After last week, he was supposedly limited and still got a bunch of touches anyway. Josh Jacobs, good matchup for him against the Bears. Modest price point at $6,800 as well. But the other thing here is there are some guys who are not showing up in lineups all that much that I like. One of them is Breece Hall at $6,500. Breece Hall, even though the Jets have been so far out of contention, he's averaging 4.5 yards per carry, and they give him so many touches. Like there was some chance here that I thought that we were going to see post-trade deadline. Not they would shut Breece Hall down, but just that we would see his workload, I don't know, 75, 80% of what it was. 21 touches last week, 20 touches the week before, 16 touches, 22 touches, 20 touches. He's just pretty regularly getting right around 20 touches per game. And as bad as this Jets team has been, he's averaging over 10 yards per reception. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry. His touchdowns are down, which that'll happen because the team just barely moves the ball or scores most of the time. But Breece Hall individually is getting a lot of touches, and he's playing really well this year.
Yeah, I like him. His price has come up, but I still think he's viable. It's a shame we can't really target this Cincinnati backfield right now. I don't know what to do with it. Chase Brown is not cheap, but Samaje Perine Chase Brown had a lot of work last game. He had 22 total touches. I think that's a lot, right? He caught all 7 of his receptions. He had 15 carries on the ground. But the concerning part there is Perine got work inside the 10, and he had 14 carries and 2 targets. That's worrisome, especially if you fall behind against Josh Allen and you're not playing with a multi-score lead like we saw last week. So, a little bit concerned there. You want to talk wide receivers here?
Yeah, we can move over to wide receivers, which we've already brought this up as we've gone, but Jamar Chase, 52% of lineups. He's our second most rostered player, only behind Aaron Jones in the Sims right now.
Yeah, it looks extraordinarily good. Hard to get away from. Buffalo, yes, run funnel, but Jamar Chase is very capable of just, it not mattering. He's a very unique player. We'll get into all of that right now. Before we do, though, I should probably point out, right, that for those of you guys that want to get access to the Sims, want to get access to all of these tools, you already probably know how to do it from watching this show, but I will give you a subtle reminder here that there is no other site out there that, is giving free access to these tools by signing up with any of our Sportsbook or Pick'em partners. And I say that because the tools we use are very good. The tools that we have are good. We want you to win. We want you to win because then you'll stick around. Because why would you want to go anywhere else? I mean, you look at some of these wins just from recently, like the NBA wins the other day. Skull Crusher. We've seen him in chat a lot too. So if you're in here, congrats, man. But just a massive performance in the mega zone or whatever it was. 25K second place, and then take 6, 11, 28. All of this stuff, man. And you have so many of these low stakes players who normally wouldn't go in and utilize these tools because of the price. It's $130 a month otherwise. But instead, if you just use that link in the description and sign up with any of our partners, you're getting them for free the entire month of core. We also have something special coming with, I can't tell you what it is, but the core package is about to, I believe it's about to change a little bit in a very, very positive way. And you'll need to do nothing in order to take advantage of that outside of either have it or click claim offer on any of these. This one, Onyx, is a sweepstakes book. It's available in 40 plus states. Click claim offer, sign up. You have to click this or otherwise we can't track it to give you the free month. And then spend $10, get 100 in bonus picks, and then just email us. After you take a screenshot of your welcome email and your first settled bet, email support@stokastic.com. Say, hey, signed up on Onyx. Here's the screenshots. Can I get a free month of NFL? If you did Onyx and you did Fanatics, right? Now you're 10 or 15, $20 in, $260 worth of subscriptions. by doing the same thing. And you could go, can I get a month of NBA and a month of NFL? So if you want to use these tools, and you want to improve the way you play DFS, you can do it this way. And when I say free, I mean, yeah, sure, $5, $10 deposit, but also you're getting bonus bets, you're getting deposit bonuses, and also you may just win your bet. So then you're actually free rolling. And at the end of the day, the very worst case scenario is that every single month of the sims that you're adding onto your account, the worst scenario is you lose your bet and you paid $5 or $10 for what would have normally cost you 130 out of pocket. So that's how you get the sims for free. If you ever have any questions how to use them, like Greg said, hit us up in Discord. My DMs are open on X. I know Greg's are as well. Always want to make it so you guys feel comfortable using these tools instead of just throwing you straight into the fire. All right. Take a look back at wide receivers here. We don't have to talk about Jamar Chase anymore. We talked about Olave. I do like him. I mean, obviously the tools like Tyler Shuck, so Olave is going to pop up. Is there anything that jumps off the page at you, though? That's what I'm most curious about.
Adonai Mitchell, $4,600, showing up in a third of the field's lineups. He is a boom bust option, but he's getting a lot of opportunities with the Jets. We saw last week 12 targets to Adonai Mitchell. He had 7 targets the week before against the Ravens. Guy's a bit of a donk. He's probably going to make a stupid play or two out there. But you have a guy who's talented in a good matchup against the Dolphins who could be getting upwards of 12 targets, 4,600. I imagine the ownership is going to come up. He was in winning lineups last week. That's always something that dictates ownership a little bit, actually more than a little bit. I would say that if I had to predict one player's ownership to be considerably higher than what they are in the Sims, or what they are in our projections, I would not be shocked if Mitchell ends up being 25+% owned.
Me too, which means that I like John Mechie quite a bit. I don't have a problem with Adonai Mitchell, but he's still, there's not a person in the world that could convince me he's not still a very volatile player.
Oh,
like he had a big game, but I mean, he was sitting in the end zone when he caught that. Maybe he just needs to sit down at the end of his routes.
And you brought up Mechie. Mechie's also a good option. He has not had the same production as Adonai Mitchell, but the workload is there. He had 8 targets against the Falcons last week, 7 in the game against the Ravens the week before. And he was great in the game against the Ravens, 6 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. So not the level of production we got out of Mitchell last week. And Mechie was wildly inefficient last week, was targeted 8 times, had 19 receiving yards on 8 targets. So you're talking about 2.5 yards per target out of Mechie. But still, if you're going to be getting a guy who is contrarian, could serve as a leverage play, and then also is going to potentially be getting 7-8 targets like he's gotten the last couple of weeks, that's definitely of interest.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, you could go both ways here. Because last week, Adonai Mitchell was clearly the guy you needed, and you did not want to have John Mechie. But 2 weeks ago against Baltimore, Adonai Mitchell had 2 receptions for 42 on 7 targets. Total dud. Where Mechie on same 7 targets had 6 for 67 and a touchdown. So I'm just saying there's definitely something going on there. And yeah, actually, Eric, this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? He said, I played Mitchell last week because Laffy pointed out the discrepancy in ownership. Right. And now I think you might see it flip back in the opposite direction. And if it does, that doesn't mean don't play any Adonai Mitchell, because I had both of these guys last week. And unfortunately, I had Mechie in the lineups that I needed Mitchell. But I was very overweight to Adonai Mitchell. Sometimes it's just, when you have a very limited sample on these guys, I mean, it's very limited sample for Adonai Mitchell in this offense. It's 3 weeks. Then I would say, I don't want to just take 1 week and proclaim that as what we're going to see going forward.
Yeah. And the other thing, the Jets have also made a quarterback change, right? Tyrod Taylor instead of Justin Fields. So you don't know how that is something that impacts their offense and who's getting targeted. And, we saw, at least so far, this isn't massively shocking, but Tyrod Taylor does appear to be quite a bit more competent throwing the football than what Justin Fields has been this season.
It sure appears to be that way. Terry McLaurin's interesting. I don't know how I feel about Emeka Egbuka. I don't know if Mike Evans will be back. I think he's probably out one more week, but Ibuka has really been underwhelming lately, man.
Yeah. If you look at his numbers overall for the season, they're pretty solid, but a lot of that is skewed towards some earlier season results over the course of the last, 7 games. He's had 60 receiving yards once. Unfortunately, that one game, it was a game where I don't know if you were on him or not. I was not on him for that slate. He ended up being chalky. And in all matchups, there's 115 yards and a touchdown against the Patriots. That's his only game with 60-plus receiving yards in the last 7 games, though.
Right. And you know what else stands out? The lack of efficiency in these games. Earlier in the season, he was having some of these games where it's like 7 for 7 with 163, 6 for 8. And then you start like 4 for 6 with 67 and 2 scores. And now this guy's over the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, sorry. He's hauling in well under 50% of his targets. So I don't love that. Now Godwin's back. Who knows? Maybe it helps open things up a little bit, but Godwin's is not the same guy that he once was. We'll see what Mike Evans looks like. Again, I think it's going to be one more week, but any other thoughts on the wide receiver position and primarily some of these expensive guys like Nakua and JSN, who both wildly underwhelmed, one of them a lot more than the other last week?
So what's our projection? I actually like Godwin a little bit this week. 5,300. We do not have him projected well. He looked pretty good to me last week. He ended up with 3 catches for 78 yards. He did drop a touchdown that he should have had. I would not be stunned if Chris Godwin ends up with more targets going forward than Emeka Egbuka. I thought that Godwin looked pretty good last week.
Look, Baker's had a great rapport with him for a long time. There's no doubt about that. 53. I don't think it's crazy against the Saints, especially with what's weird to me is the amount of Baker Mayfield we're getting. If we do end up on that much Baker, I would definitely want to get some Chris Godwin in there. That's the way I see it.
I wonder who we're. All right, let me look at these lineups because we have more Baker than we have of Egbuka, and we have none of Chris Godwin. So who are we? Is it just like Bucky Irving as the stack
or Otten?
It's possible. Let's see. Oops. All right, so I'll just look at our Baker lineups and see who we've got him paired with. All right,
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah. So we've got Baker with Egbuka and Otten, Baker with Egbuka and Otten, Baker with just Egbuka in this lineup. This one is also Otten and Egbuka. Here's a QB +3, Irving, Egbuka, and Otten. Yeah, you're right. It's pretty much all Otten.
I'm with you. I would definitely try and boost Chris Godwin a little bit. I think that's a really good point. And it's hard to believe right now because let's not forget, they are battling in the NFC South. And I don't think either team that doesn't win that division is going to end up making it as a wild card team this year. It's highly unlikely that that's the case. I think, yeah, if you're going with a spot like this and you're getting to as much Baker Mayfield as we are, it only makes sense that you get some Chris Godwin in a game like this. I know Egbuka ran a lot more routes than Otten last week, than Godwin, and he was targeted 3 more times. But as you pointed out, Godwin was, again, just more effective. And they have that rapport, a long-standing rapport. I could see this being the type of game where Godwin gets there. Also, I just don't know how much I love the Baker stacks in general against this Saints team. I'm not in love with it as much as the tools are right now. I like Bucky a lot, but it's just so difficult these days to try and figure out who it's going to be anyway. And Cade Otton's been a wildly disappointing player for a lot of these games. Egbuka has really struggled lately. Maybe that's the reason that we should go back to him. But now you reintroduce Chris Godwin, you put Bucky Irving back in so they're going to feel more comfortable running the football and using him out of the backfield. There's so many ways that you have to get this right.
And there's also there's a little bit risk. There's a little bit of blowout risk just because it's the Saints. But as far as Baker goes, I do like him. I probably don't like him quite as much as the Sims do right now. I'm very doubtful out of 18+% of him.
Yeah, me neither. I don't see that being the case. Talk about tight ends before we close this out by just scrolling some of these lineups. Yeah, so we have Kincaid out right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Dawson Knox. Look, you don't have to love Dawson Knox, but at sub 3K against the Bengals, tough spot to get away from. That's a tough spot to ignore.
Yeah, so a lot of this, if Kincaid ends up playing, this is going to so dramatically change a lot of things. I also wonder if Kincaid plays, does that mean we get less of Josh Allen? Just because a lot of Josh Allen lineups are paired with Dawson Knox right now. And that works because Dawson Knox is really cheap. Even though Kincaid playing would be an upgrade for the Bills offense, it does make them a little bit more costly. So maybe that could potentially be an issue there.
I think we just get less Juwan Johnson and Shuck and less Cade Otton. Like I think Dalton Kincaid would probably just usurp some of that ownership.
Some of it, but boy, tight end sucks this week.
It's not great. Yeah, when you're getting 15% AJ Barner.
Yeah.
And Harold
we've got
Fannin.
15% age. Also, there's only one tight end projected for double-digit ownership. That's Tyler Warren, and his quarterback has a broken leg, and they're in a somewhat tough matchup against the Jaguars here too. So, it's not even to say I dislike Tyler Warren. It's just he's the chalk at the position, and I'm not thrilled with him as an option at 5K either. You just look across the board. Brock Bowers shows up in 21% of lineups. Brutal matchup against Denver, though. I don't even know how many times Geno Smith is going to be able to throw the ball without getting sacked in this game or just pressured immensely and having to throw the ball away. Then you got Juwan Johnson, Cade Otton. You mentioned AJ Barner, Harold Fannin. I mean, just with a disaster of a quarterback situation. Love the matchup against the Titans, but I don't have any faith in the ability for the Browns to actually get Harold Fannin the football. So I think for me, it's just going to go really thin at the tight end position. Sims are probably just going to throw a lot of guys into stacks. There's a very clear correlation here. The tight ends we're getting to, other than, we had a little bit of Geno Smith, but in general, the tight ends we're getting to are just whoever quarterbacks are playing or them as run backs.
Yep. And that's the other thing with Harold Fannin is like he had a 34-yard touchdown last week, but he still finished with 3 for 43. So you basically need a touchdown out of Harold Fannin in a game like this. So I don't know. There's going to be snow in Orchard Park for this Bills game. I'm going to pay attention to that because I don't know if it's the lake effect snow, but that's probably something to look out for in a game like this because we're still a few days out. Interesting. 29 degrees, definite snow is in the forecast. Do you know the temperature in Lambeau is going to be 11 degrees this week?
There'll be idiots there with their shirts off.
I don't look at them as those are just men.
Yeah. That's the definition of a man is thinking you're tougher than the weather.
No, just tougher than other men, and they would be right.
You don't have to take your shirt off in 10 degree weather and risk frostbite or something to prove you're tough.
It's a statement.
Yeah, it's a statement that you're an idiot.
I disagree. I couldn't disagree more, actually.
There's not a single person who's going outside with their shirt off in 10 degree weather that's like Menza or something.
That's not true at all. Cold therapy, man. There is nothing better than cold therapy.
No. For a football game.
What if they're just finding unique and fun ways to heal their body?
I will guarantee that if you ask any of those Packers fans if they're trying to heal their body by going outside, that will not be the answer. The answer will be like, I like when my nipples get hard or something like that. Like that's the most insightful answer you're going to get.
You don't think they'd be like, look, I'm trying to rejuvenate my cardiovascular system?
No,
Okay.
it would be the dumbest it would be such a dumb answer that we couldn't even fathom what it would possibly be. But most likely it's related to alcohol and their nipples.
Bunch of dudes out there, I tell you that much. JK LX8. Hey guys, I've been losing my vision since I was a kid. I stay at home a lot, but listening to your podcast at home really helps me feel surrounded by people more. Keep up the good work and thanks. That's awesome, man. I'm glad we can have, some bit of positive effect in some people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. JK, thanks for the nice words there. And yeah, maybe a negative impact on 98% of people. But if we could help 2% of people, that's good by me.
Exactly. Yep. And anyway, tight ends, Brock Bowers, I'd probably come in a little underweight. This spot is tough for me. And the target share has already been down. Patrick Surtain, last time he was healthy, was basically shadowing Bowers last year. It's a bad position, though. I like Warren. I don't love the ownership, but I like Warren. I like Knox. Juwan Johnson, I like. So it's not great, but it's not. There's a few guys that we can pick out here that look okay. All right, before we go, let's go back to lineups real quick and just see what some of our top simmed ROI builds look like on a slate like this.
Yeah. So as far as the top overall stacks, unfortunately, 2 of the top 3 are Raiders double stacks, but we got a Bills skinny stack. We got a couple of, oh my God, these are terrible. We shouldn't have looked. A JJ McCarthy double stack. All right, I can get behind Tyler Shuck. I don't like the Raiders showing up as much as they are here.
No, but I guess not. No, it's pretty gross. But also these sim out well because nobody's going to have lineups like this. Like if you just sort by most duped lineups, do we have any that are like significant at all? Anything above 10? We got a set couple 7s. Are they all both Josh Allen?
All Josh Allen lineups.
Yeah. So again, when you're building these Josh Allen lineups, just keep that in mind. It's not to say that you're going to be building fully duped lineups, but there are going to be a lot of really similar lineups. So, think of ways to get unique there. I'm going to go post some bets over to Tails, Greg. I really do believe you and I should come up with some collabs. Maybe, for some of these people here. I'm going to do the perfect lineup today as well. I will have that bonus lineup posted to Tails with a bonus bet included on top of that. I try and, what I try and do is make it so people who play DFS and people who like to bet can all get in on the fun together. Thank you guys for downloading and not downloading, but rating the app. We've had a massive influx of ratings and reviews come in recently. So I know it's a lot of you guys who watch our DFS shows because you are, and I will say this with certainty, the single best supporters of everything we do here. And it does not go unnoticed. So appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day for that. If you're loving the app, if you hate the app, if you hate it all, which I don't think you would, don't bother. But if you like it, maybe you tailed the Jahmyr Gibbs ladder at 6-1 yesterday, Greg. Maybe they've been following your bankroll challenge and having a lot of success. If that's the case, right, it's the giving season. Consider it your small free gift to us throughout this time of the year. But also, go check out Tails. The link is down there. You can follow Greg, follow me, turn on notifications, check out the leaderboard. I did have one little bone to pick here, though. Because Bet365 doesn't allow that API access. I looked at long shots because we updated the leaderboards today, and I went to NFL because I only post NFL bets, and I was like, let's see if I'm up here. Josh is up here. I see Eric with a 5-1 and myself with a 4 plus 490. But unfortunately, Greg, that was a 6-1. Now, look, it is what it is. Who cares, I guess. But I should be above our friend Eric Lindquist. As a matter of fact, I should be sitting at number 5 on this list ahead of B. Grebs and Lindy. No big deal, of course. Who cares, I suppose. But that was a 6-1 on that ladder play. But I guess who's counting, right?
It's very rare that I think somebody should gripe with being like, I should really be in 5th place.
But because
right
it's Eric, right?
But
because
I was going to say, but because it means you get ahead of Eric, then yeah, you should be ahead of Eric there.
Exactly. I never would have even mentioned it. Hell,
and more importantly, Eric should be 1 spot lower, just in general.
Right. If it were you ahead of me, I would have said, yep, mine was a plus 490. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out as always. Fun show. Heading into the weekend. Let's go kill it on Sunday. Let's see some Stokastic avatars up there at the top of the leaderboard. Make sure you're rocking those avatars as well. Stokastic.com/HOF. That's the way to do it. And if you're not doing it, well, why are you passing up an opportunity to get a free month, multiple free months of the Sims? You can win up to 3 times a year. Get that beautiful custom engraved ring and display case with any 20K win as well. Low stakes, high stakes, whatever it may be. Download whichever one of these you want because there's some beauties in here. Huh? Look at that. I prefer this one. Greg, I think you're rocking the generic one, right?
I believe so. Well, actually, I think I have, if I'm not mistaken, I think I have the one on the top left on DraftKings and the one on the top right I use on FanDuel.
Okay.
I think I'll have to double check.
Pick your poison, baby. I'm going to go get some work done. Might get a workout in so I can have a few beers tonight and enjoy myself. Santa's coming around on the fire truck. So I don't know. The kids will be asleep, but I can't wait. Now, the kids will like that. And hopefully I can, get a moderate buzz on prior to having to deal with the festivities. But anything before we go?
No, just like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like Lofty said, if you guys have been enjoying Tales, take 5 seconds out of your day to leave us a nice 5-star review.
Yeah, maybe say something nice. Say, hey, that Lofty and Greg, those guys, couple of real, they seem like a bunch of jerks.
They look like they own a computer. They seem to know what they're doing.
That guy seems like a real jerk. All right. We'll see you guys back here soon. Bye-bye.